Wackyman. It's time for obscure villains who appear only a few times, or only once. Today we're diving back into the realm of Aquaman. We're going to be taking a look at the adventure The Sea Clown, a story where Aquaman is very concerned about people not taking him seriously. May he never learn of the Super Friends.
They're in trouble. It's something in that lake. That's my department.
I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and it's Forgotten Villain time. Wackyman, who has a name that is very fun to say, debuted in Adventure Comics 233 in 1957. So a Silver Age creation, and one who has, as of time of recording, seemingly stayed there. After we go through this, you can tell me if the world needs more Wackyman. I just love saying it. It also makes me think about that whole wacky waving inflatable arm tube man joke.
Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man.
The art in the story is by Ramona Fradon, but I couldn't completely pin down who the author was. I found that Otto Binder was the person who wrote the first story, which was Joe Smith, Man of Steel, a story about an average, Joe getting powers like Superboy, because this is Adventure Comics, which means it's the adventures of Superman when he was a boy, which I love as a tagline. It was Superboy's popularity in these Adventure Comics stories that would see him getting his own solo series in 1949, but some significant lore developments would still happen in Adventure Comics, like the addition of Krypto and him meeting the Legion of Superheroes. Overall, Adventure Comics was a significant series that housed many key characters at different moments over its 503-issue run, from 1938 to 1983. But back to issue 233. The last story, A Lesson for a Bully, is a Green Arrow story by Bill Finger. But enough backstory, it's time to send in the clown. You've all thrilled to the amazing feats performed by Aquaman, but wait until you meet Wackyman, for not only can Wackyman duplicate Aquaman's feats on the sea, but he can make you laugh as well, and only the Sea King himself sees nothing very amusing about the Sea Clown. No jesters in Arthur's court. Aquaman is not a joke, how dare you. Aquaman first spots Wackyman at the Sea Fair, and as the clown goes into his act, what? I always thought I was the only person who could teach an octopus to do that. Arthur is writing Topo in this panel. I want to hear from Topo what the purpose was of the spin training. Also, does Aquaman just regularly go around and see what other sea trainers are doing to see if he's on the top of his game or if other people are kind of infringing on his domain as King of the Sea? But still more surprises are in store for the Sea King when he's even trained a swordfish and is duplicating one of my feats. Only I wish he wouldn't act so foolish about it. Does Aquaman regularly just put swordfish and make them go into targets and bullseyes? I have so many questions about what's happening in the Atlantis court. I'm concerned for the people of Atlantis. Ooh, maybe it's time for the update that nobody asked for, a courtroom drama where Aquaman sues Wackyman. And as the hilarious show continues, look, Dad, he's holding up a string of electric eels that spell out his name in lights. For some reason at this fair, they give away how Wackyman does his tricks. They reveal that the fish are electronic replicas and they're controlled via remote. This both impresses and seemingly relaxes Aquaman. He was getting concerned. But there's still the problem that the act was too silly. He's gonna have to talk to him. Nice fish you have there. Be a shame if something were to happen to them. Now, what follows is a common plot, and that is lazy criminals looking to use somebody else's gimmick to commit crimes. So some pirates saw this performance, and because it was also revealed how the feats were done, they know that they can kidnap Wackyman and get his electronic fish, and they can perform some crimes on the high seas. Yo-ho.
I never dreamed that my mechanical fish would someday be used for crime.
Poor Wackyman. He's so stressed that the white paint around his mouth temporarily vanished. You know, if he really invented these things, he may not be using them to their full potential. Maybe there's a world of wealth awaiting Wackyman. Now, of course, committing crimes at sea means that Aquaman soon arrives on the scene, but he finds himself having some difficulty against these mechanical fish. Can't just bend them to his will. Blast those mechanical fish. I know it wasn't Wackyman's fault because those crooks are forcing him to do it. I'll have to try again. I really like this panel. It's a little thing, but the detail Fradon adds to the hair to have it be going a couple of different directions because he got blasted in the face. It's subtle, but appreciated. Now, the biggest hurdle for Aquaman is the mechanical swordfish. That's actually a bit of a problem. However, suddenly he's able to mount them. And Wackyman says that his control box is out of control. Nothing is working. Aquaman is able to swim up the spout of the whale because it's spouting water, so he just kind of swims up it, lands on deck, punch first. Okay, Aquaman, you asked for it. I mean, if you were willing to just shoot Aquaman from the start, there were other opportunities. Ow, my arm! Call off these crazy mechanical fish before they destroy us all! I've got news for you. There's nothing mechanical about these fish. They're the real thing. I know you thought it was Wackyman's imitations. Actually, he was only pretending to operate the electronic panel, just as I told him to do.
You told him? How?
I like that Aquaman takes the time to explain how he did it. What if they get out? Now they're gonna know what to look for. Aquaman's very confident that they're never seeing the light of day again. And so, en route to shore,
By the way, Wackyman, that's a real clever act you've got, but would you mind not making my feet, sir?
Looks so silly. Ah, anything you say, Aquaman. Boo-doop, boo-doop, boop. And so Wackyman has to give up doing what he loved to appease the king of the sea. Oh, sorry, the Sea King. Clowns are meant to be silly, Aquaman. Now, Wackyman is not really a villain. He's more a victim of circumstance. He was coerced, so it's not truly fair that he makes some villain lists. What else would he be? We need another kind of term for people who are forced into crimes in these comics, because it happens to a lot of characters. Now, on the whole, this is a fairly run-of-the-mill story with very familiar beats. What makes it stand out, or could, comes in reading it with the full breadth of Aquaman's history as it stands in play. Just the idea of a story where Aquaman's main gripe is the idea that he's not being taken seriously. When you place that in the context of a world where for decades he was treated as a joke, and then there was a hard course correct we're trying to make him really edgy, it's just entertaining. Those first animated depictions, they stuck with him and made people for years not take him seriously as a character. A story like this makes one wonder if there was always a contingent of people who thought that Aquaman as a concept was maybe a little silly. It's all fun and games until someone sends a shark to eat you, or an eel comes up your toilet to electrocute you, or an octopus with highly specialized training comes to spin you. Another interesting element is Fradon's involvement. Fradon did a lot of work on Aquaman and helped co-create a lot of the characters. For example, Aqualad. She's very important to the evolution of Aquaman's lore, particularly in the Silver Age, which is where it diverged from the Golden Age origins. Golden Age Aquaman was not from Atlantis. There's a whole other history there. Fradon, who would eventually become fairly prominent in DC, was the one who was assigned the task of revamping the character for the Silver Age, a process that occurred across DC in the 1950s. Adventure Comics was her first ongoing assignment, though some may be more familiar with her for co-creating Metamorpho. Aquaman has a rich history, and there are lots of villains that kind of popped up and then weren't used too much. Characters like the Unthing, the Thirst. Those are decades apart, but they're both interesting in different ways. So my question for all of you is, what do you think it is about Aquaman that lent itself or lends itself to him being treated like he's a bit more of a joke? Is it the colors of the costume? Is it the fact that sometimes it looks like he's water skiing on some of the creatures?
Aquaman, swift and powerful monarch of the ocean.
Aquaman did come to Adventure Comics in issue 103 in 1946 from More Fun Comics, but despite the name, it hadn't been a purely comedic book before that point. Comics were shifting around in the mid to late 40s, as superhero popularity dwindled. Being a backup story in Adventure Comics may have helped Aquaman survive, or at least run consistently, as that series overall did well. He had a backup in it for 15 years. Would you bring back Wackyman, or is this one of those things that can be lost to the annals of time, best left forgotten? Share all of your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do YouTube things like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon.